Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, outsiders and in-betweeners. My name is Cameron Harris, and I am running for mayor of Chicago in the 2027 election cycle. Tonight, we will be making gumbo. I want to start off this episode with the lawsuit President Trump has brought against the Department of Justice, because I hate this type of fraud or embezzlement or thievery, whatever type of nonsense legally you want to call this. But the fact that the White House East Wing, the renovation, it cost $230 million. And the fact that the amount brought against the Justice Department is also $230 million is not lost on me. To me, this is obviously a gambit to recoup or refund himself the money that was spent at the White House. Despite all of the press secretaries, all of his nonsense about how we, the people, are not going to pay for this, we, capital, the people, are now in fact paying for this. Let's all be on the same page now. I would like to say that I don't like talking about President Trump because it makes my show very dated and very boring. When I listen to old rap music from 2016 and all that, and they have a verse that's calling out President Trump, it makes that song very dated because when they bring him up, you immediately know when this happened because he's only been president twice. So it gives you a time frame. And so it immediately makes something old and outdated. And I wish I could stop talking about him. I really do. But we also have to talk about the positioning of aircraft carriers around Venezuela. Because I feel like this is the start of a modern Cuban Missile Crisis scenario. Because you could not convince me that there is not an ulterior motive to moving aircraft carriers to Venezuela. The issue of the cartels is purely one of economics. And so it doesn't matter how many drug boats, how many gangsters, how many cartel members are killed. It doesn't matter how many people President Trump arrests. It doesn't matter how many boats they sink, because there are always going to be more poor people in Venezuela for the cartels to hire. And so, literally, you cannot kill them all. And so there must be an ulterior motive. And I've started thinking about this a lot more. And I've brought up before that I feel President Trump is going to drag us into another open war with a major world power. The way he keeps talking about securing himself a third term and that sneaky little smug grin he gets is someone who has a hilarious secret. And so I started thinking to myself, what is something the president could do to secure himself a third term? And you don't have to look very far, because FDR in World War II secured himself a third term through his wartime powers because Congress allowed him to continue his presidency because we were at war and he was the one sailing the boat to maintain a steady course for wartime progress. And that's how he's going to get his third term. People keep asking him and getting confused at they keep bringing up the Constitution and they're like, oh, but you can't, Mr. President. The Constitution says you can't. But it's we know how he's going to plunge us into war, and he's going to use that to get Congress to extend his term. Now, I feel the positioning of these aircraft carriers is a preemptive strike against the Chinese. I feel that once the Russians have succeeded in their invasion of Ukraine, they are going to attack the Chinese. Because in my mind, the Chinese core territory, rather, is the only economically viable, diplomatically independent entity bordering Russia. And so they are the only prize, like, on the board. And I feel that the movement of these aircraft carriers is so that they will be in position already for, like, a preemptive strike whenever Putin decides to engage the Chinese. He will call on President Trump, and the aircraft carriers will already be halfway there.